welcome, Frank.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Romeo.
Romeo.
Okay.
Thank you. Ed.
All right.
Sabrina.
Frank?
Frank, when were you in the service?
68 through 70. I served in the 199th Infantry.
2 years.
2 years. I didn't make full 2 years. I was wounded in 69. Came home a little early.
Okay, what was your wounds like?
I was in a firefight. I was separated from my unit, and I was hit with a claymore, several claymore pellets, ball bearings. I took them. I was shot a few times, and then I don't remember anything after that.
Yeah, I understand you woke up.
I woke up a month later in Japan.
A month after you were shot.
Yes, I don't remember anything for a month. I woke up in Japan, Camp Zama, Japan, and that started almost a year of rehabilitation in the hospitals throughout the United States. I was too weak to travel long distances, so they would periodically fly me closer and closer to home. My final VA hospital was St. Albans before it became a VA facility. It was a Navy hospital in St. Albans, right here in Flushing in Queens.
Can I ask you about your PTSD?
Sure. PTSD happened immediately. It kicked in while I was still under treatment as in the military. I began showing bad behavior in the military.
What kind of bad behavior?
Drugs, alcohol, the drug abuse. I couldn't take orders. I had a really difficult time. The nightmares started. I still have the nightmares. The nightmares began to start. I began showing symptoms of what we know today as PTSD. Of course, back then, they didn't have a handle on it like we do today.
Did you have problem getting out of the service?
I actually got in so much trouble in the service that I was put in a stockade. I actually was discharged for the United States Army from Fort Dick Stockade from a prison cell. Dishonorably discharged. Because of my medical record, it was repealed later on.
It was repealed?
Yeah, it was repealed. For leaving the hospital, they sent me to West Point to do menial jobs. I was pretty banged up still. I was on crutches. I just had a really difficult time. And the bad behavior continued, and finally they just busted me for drugs, and they sent me to the brig.
Frank, while you were being treated and while you were making those transitions coming back home, you were in a couple of mass medical units?
Yes, yeah. The first one was the 24th Evac, right in Saigon. That was my first, and I still, actually, I don't know how I have it, but back then, of course, we didn't have computers, and so they would actually pin your orders to your white garb, whatever, even bandages. I was bandaged from head to toe. I was a mess. And I still have those orders, so I know I was in the 24th Evac. I know the dates, and I know I went to Camp Zama, Japan. I don't remember it, but I know I was there.
And then upon your return, being that you had those injuries, did the VA give you medicine to alleviate some of those pains and some of those?
No, I was still in the military. I wasn't discharged.
Oh, okay.
I was still in the military that year in the hospital. They wouldn't discharge me, and that was the way veterans were kind of treated back then. They wouldn't give me a discharge, and they kept me in. I took morphine morning, noon, and night, literally to save my life. But I became addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
And
well, morphine. Now we use morphine. Morphine is more of a sedative.
Yeah.
So if you get morphine, it's more to relax your whole entire body and some of your organs and stuff.
Yeah. So
it's a toxic drug.
I became addicted to drugs. I went through, and then. Again, I got into so much trouble and being discharged, and the drug and alcohol abuse continued for another decade.
And you were shunned from that type of behavior from your family and the community?
Yes, I was in bad shape. I broke up my family. My family, my brothers moved away to get away from me. The anger and the rage, I went through all the stages and continued with the drug and alcohol abuse for another decade. So it was a difficult period of time in my life.
Let me just ask you one question before we move on. Was there one person that stuck by you through all this?
Yeah, Mom.
Mom. They said Mom.
My Italian mother was 4'8" tall, and she could wield a wooden spoon, but she was loving.
And what was her name? Is she still around?
No.
What was her name?
Isabel.
Isabel.
Yeah.
God bless Isabel and all those mothers out there.
Yeah. That's what pulled me through.
Very good. Frank, you've been walking. What is that all about?
Well, 30 years ago, when I came to terms with my PTSD, I realized the importance of it, and I began traveling around the country talking to people, especially talking to our students going into the military. I thought it was important that they should have a heads up on what to expect, and I believe in education before the fact, as opposed to education after the fact. I think we need to spend a little more time in preparation with our youth. I believe we need to infuse reality-based education into our programs. So I began these education programs, and I began traveling around the country. I started creating artwork as a means of cathartic release of my own feelings and emotions. So I began creating artwork, and the subject matter was always the same: post-trauma. It was always, I would cry, I would relive a story, and I would begin to create this artwork. Then I began to reach out to other veterans around the country, and I began to collect artwork all with the same topic. It was always the same: post-trauma. And these veterans were creating this artwork. Then I realized what I had done. I was documenting American history through art. And not only that, I was documenting the emotional history of our country. I was documenting the story of PTSD as we know it today through artwork. And I said, whoa, this is cool. And I began traveling around the country teaching people. And I would take the artwork with me, and because I had no money, I would sleep in the van next to the artwork. And I would go to schools, and I would talk about PTSD and post-trauma to anyone that would listen to me, literally, and at my own expense. And of course, I never took a salary. I never took any money, because I would think it was that important. And so to learn, there came a time, several years ago, there came a time that if I was going to reach people about post-trauma, if I was going to talk to people about post-trauma, I should learn everything there is to know about PTSD. So I went back to Southeast Asia, and I lived in the jungles and the rice paddies all over again.
What year did you do that?
A couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah, and I went up to Laos, to the bombed out areas of Laos. I sailed on a wooden boat down the Mekong River across the Ammonite Mountains into what was then North Vietnam. I slept in little bombed out villages. Literally, I slept in bomb craters. B-52 bomb craters are still there. The holes are still in the ground. Wow. You cannot imagine.
How was the language problem?
Oh, if I had a problem, I would get a guide. You could always find someone who spoke. They're making a transition there. They're trying to educate for Western values, and they're teaching English. Almost everyone is learning English there. So I went to Senator McCain's cell, and I spent the whole afternoon meditating in his cell in the Hanoi Hilton. And I would broadcast a daily blog, and I would write my feelings and emotions. I'd post pictures of me when I was 18 years old on a Mekong River fighting, and at 70 years old as an old man on a Mekong River. And
how old are you now? 71?
I'm 71. I'll be 71. Yeah. And I would talk about my feelings and emotions. Then came the time I met our former enemy, and I sat down with the Viet Cong, and we had dinner, and we talked about their PTSD and how they dealt with it. And it was fascinating to get their viewpoint on how we talk about post-trauma here, and we talk about, for instance, the POW MIA, we lost a couple of thousand men. We vaporized literally 500,000 people in the country of Vietnam during the Vietnam era. And so, not to mention Laos, and we talked about PTSD from their viewpoint. And so I took that to the classroom. When it was feasible, I would Skype literally from the jungles of Southeast Asia right into the classrooms of America. It's never been done before, in real time. And the students would ask me questions, and I would
Let's
answer.
taper back a little bit, okay? To the point where you went from having that position where you were having your own PSD episode and going through that. You had your mom to help you. At what point did it click that did you get a purpose that made you come out of that PTSD?
It was almost an epiphany, if you will. Okay. It's hard to explain. It was almost that point came where PTSD, something finally made sense. They couldn't have a handle on it. We know the story of PTSD. We really didn't have the terminology until the early 90s. Right. We went through the study for 10 years, and we did all that. So that kind of made sense to me. And then I had kind of this epiphany, and I began to create this artwork. And I began teaching, and I've been doing it ever since for 30 years. Jumping forward now, so I've been doing this for so long, and no one knows about me, and I'm kind of a...
Because we're in the same town.
Yeah, and you know, I'm a one-man army. I hate to use that phrase, but no one knew what I was doing. So I said, you know what? I'm going to walk across New York State. I'm going to raise hell. I'm going to make people pay attention to me, and I did. And I was on the front page of literally every newspaper between Buffalo, and I was on the front cover of Newsday. And literally, I got attention. I brought attention to issues we need to talk about at the educational level.
Let me make this clear. You walked from Buffalo, New York, all the way to Bayshore.
Yeah, 3.5 months.
3.5 months it took you to walk that distance.
Sleeping in homeless shelters, sleeping in rest areas, eating in soup kitchens. I had a team that looked out for me.
How many miles a day did you walk?
Anywhere from 5 to 15. The most was 15. The least amount was 5. And I had
Frank,
a team.
how big was your team?
We had, well, this was well planned, so I broke the walk down into 25 counties. Okay. And I visited each county twice before I walked. So I visited the VSO of every county, the elected official of every county, the veterans organizations of every county. Let them know I'm coming. Okay. And so I had a support team almost throughout the state. That's what I mean when I have a support team. I also had people that were looking out for me. I met with the state trooper barracks, each one, twice, throughout the state. They were keeping an eye on me. So it was kind of choreographed. I didn't just wander around aimlessly.
So it was a community village that was behind you.
Exactly. A village was raising.
And it was the people out in the community in our country now supporting you for what you did for our nation and during Vietnam. Yeah. And also, I just want you to reiterate that you're walking and you also have injuries.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So while you're doing that walk, because I'm walking now at the Bayshore little high school there, and I'm having pain already. And I could imagine what you're enduring.
Well, this is all titanium. I mean, I was hit 7 times. I have a bullet in my spine. You know, I was shot alongside my jaw, hit my face. You know, so I have injuries, but you know, you push through it. You know. And
then you also have pain, and I'm quite sure during your journey it was raining or something
God.
like that.
It was I started during the Arctic vortex. Niagara Falls was frozen. There was just a small portion of Niagara Falls that was flowing. The Niagara River was frozen. I slept many nights. And in these shelters, and during the cold nights, I would call up the Western New York Coalition for Homeless Veterans, and I documented what it's like. Now, again, going back to the education, students in America were following me. I introduced the students of America to the homeless veterans of New York State. I introduced students to patients in VA hospitals. It's very rare that you get a camera crew, and I documented everything on camera inside a homeless shelter. I did it 3 times with camera crews. I actually, for 3 times, went in VA hospitals with a camera crew and was allowed to do it and documented. So I'm introducing our students, our New York State students, to our New York State veteran community, whether it be homeless, whether it be in a VA hospital, whether it be an American Legion post. So I'm actually documenting the status of our veterans throughout New York State. And it's an education program, and students followed me. Now, when I walked into Albany, again, I contacted my senator. I told him who I was, and they allowed me to come out on the Senate floor and speak. And I got out and I addressed our elected officials at the state level. And I Skyped in students from the classrooms of Bayshore High School right into the chamber, right into the Senate chamber. And I let the elected officials actually talk to them about following a program of reality-based education and what they gave it. And what the students said is, basically, you know what? I can find anything I need on the internet. I don't care how many people died at Way City. But you bring in a Way City survivor, now you have an education.
Right.
Yes.
And we're not tapping into the most important resource we have in this country in education, and that's living history. So I took my program, I took my ideas, I spoke at 24 high schools on my walk. They advocated it, they embraced it. I took it to Albany when I finished my walk, and this fall is actually going to be a Walk with Frank project, 2-year project proposed in Albany. And it's going to be part of the education, hopefully, it's going to be part of the education budget for next year. And it's going to be a 2-year pilot project, and we're going to bring reality-based education to high schools all over New York State.
And Frank, which people gave you that support to help you get up into Albany?
My own hometown senator, Senator Boyle, was behind me.
He's always
Phil is really nice, right? Senator Brooks from Nassau County, who is the chair of Veterans Affairs.
Yes.
Shelley Mayer is the chair of Education, and Senator Carlucci is the chair of Mental Health. We're touching on these three departments and putting this together, putting a package together. I have endorsements letters coming in from all over the state, from VSOs all over the state, from high schools all over the state, from elected officials all over the state. We're putting this whole thing together in a big package. I was in Albany yesterday taping a TV show right from the state capitol about this education program with Assemblyman Ramos.
Yes.
And he's
There's another good one in the town of Islip.
Yeah, and you know, he's the head of you know.
Where is that TV show going to be shown?
It's going to be on, I believe, on Long Island. It's going to be on channel 18 and 12. It might be public access, the same as you. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Channel 12 would be regular commercial.
Yeah.
Channel 12 is Suffolk County news, but it's in different. Channel 12 is non-profit, but it's
and then channel 18
in Nassau
I think.
County and too, but different channels.
Yeah.
But it's Channel 12.
Yeah. So we talked about it, and so I have the backing, and I tomorrow I'm going to meet Eileen Gunther, who is the chairperson for mental health in the Assembly.
Yes.
So I got support from Democrats and Republicans, and in Albany I spoke and I said, look, this is not a right or left problem. This is an American social issue. We have a mental health crisis in this country. We throw the number 22 suicides a day around, but that's the success rates. There's 100 for every one that succeeds in a suicide. There are countless attempts. We don't even know the numbers. This is a mental health crisis that we need to talk about. We need to treat mental health the way we treat physical health. And we need to have this conversation at the educational level. And this program does that.
And we need to treat it as a disease process, not as an idiot process. Because we don't want to go back to people thinking mental illness has something to do with people being unjust or something like that. It's a disease process.
Yes.
We need to make sure.
Yes.
And with you bringing awareness of this and you're doing what you have to do. One other thing I want to ask you, through your transition, you met some of the Iraqi and Afghanistan soldiers, right, coming
Yes.
through.
Yes.
And I have heard of, I know that I have one that started walking, he was doing that also. And he tried to, I don't want to put his name out there, tried to commit suicide also. I know his mom and stuff like that. And I want to say, that walk has inspired him. Having a purpose has made him go forward. That's
Correct.
why I asked you.
I'm moving
all
forward.
the things
Exactly.
that you're doing
Exactly.
with your knee, suffering from the PTSD,
Exactly.
lack of funds and resources,
Right.
and you're still moving at the age
Right.
of 50,
Right.
you said?
70.
71. Easy.
71.
Right.
Yes. So, and how is your family getting aboard with this? And how?
Oh,
because you
they've
miss it,
met
right?
me several times. We walked across the walkway over to Hudson. I had Senator Serino. I had Assemblywoman Barrett walk with her. I had the mayor of Poughkeepsie walk with me. Senator Ord, who is a Silver Star recipient in North Tonawanda. I mean, we have these
yes.
people that are on board
with
with
it.
this project. In my opinion, we're a country that waits for someone to get hit by the car, then we put up the stop sign.
All right. What
Okay.
would you tell the viewers out there exactly what you want to do now moving forward, like saying tomorrow and
Well,
going forward? What do you want to get out?
again, it's like we put up the stop sign after someone gets hit. We can keep building more shelters. And not that we don't need them, okay? But we have a crisis. We need to stop the bleeding. We need to talk about mental health at the educational level. We need to talk about the realities of our country at the educational level, and we need to talk about them openly and freely. When I speak, I introduce myself as having a mental illness. I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I have a mental condition, and I introduce myself that way.
Yeah.
We need to say these words out loud. We need to say them so people can hear them. We need to attack the stigma surrounding mental health. I believe in education. I believe in attacking these issues before the fact. I mean, really, the last time we fought for our homeland was the Civil War. Since then, it's been an away game, and our team's been on the road, so to speak, and we send our children off to war. So we need to be honest with them. We need to talk about the realities of our country. We need to talk about real issues, and we need to infuse it into mainstream curriculum. And that's what my program does, and that's what I'm advocating for in Albany.
Okay, and what is your opinion about some of the other organizations like the Michael Murphy organization with the PTS awareness? We had them on the show a couple of months ago, right?
Wonderful. It's all
Yes.
needed. It's all needed. Everything is needed. We need these programs, but we also need to lay a foundation. We also need to address our future veterans. Every day we produce veterans in this country with a host of issues. You know, so if we start teaching about PTSD at the high school level, and we start talking about the realities of war at the high school level, possibly we can cut down on these issues when they come out. It's not that far away. 5 years they're out, 4 years they're out, 10 years they're out. We could really put a dent in some of these issues, I believe.
I'm talking to some of the future leaders at our post. We have a leadership program, and a lot of times that before they decide to join the military, I have a couple of guys now getting ready to graduate from high school, and they want to join, and they have a fear factor. All right, and like I said, someone like you, and they hear you, and I talk, and Ed, and I try to tell everybody, everyone is not dying in a war. A lot of people are coming back and they're doing marvelous things.
Right.
But the most important thing, and thank you for your courageous to open up and let the viewers know about the PTSD, because a lot of people don't want to come out here and put themselves on in the fire like that, right? So we commend you for doing that here, because we need, like what you said, let them know that that's just one disease process you have.
Yes.
Same thing like hypertension and diabetes.
Yes.
And bringing awareness.
Yeah.
Frank, you have done a bond.
Thank you.
And
You know,
keep doing what you're
not
doing.
every student's going to be a mathematician or a scientist, but
Right.
every student's going to face reality. And how they embrace it and how they learn before that happens to them and how they wrap their mind around it is how they're going to move forward.
And some of the high school students, what are they saying to you when you go out there and you speak in front of them?
They love it. They sit there. First of all, they sit there. You can hear a pin drop, and then many of them come to me afterwards and tell me personal stories that are heart-wrenching. But
Right.
they feel this openness. They feel if I can say it now, it gives them a venue. Gives them they can come out and say it, and they come in private and they talk to me, and some of them are heart-wrenching.
Okay. What can some of the viewers do, and what can we do from the Veteran News here with me and Ed here in terms of helping that bill get passed so we can
Well,
get you
when the
into
time
school?
comes, you could follow me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page.
And what
You-
is that page?
You go right on Frank, but you can go on my website, walkwithfrank.org.
Oh, that's easy to remember.
There you go.
Walkwithfrank.org.
That's it. And you can go right on my website. When the time comes, I'll ask everyone to call their elected officials and say, hey, we really need this program. And I think if we do this right in New York State, we can be an example for the rest of the country. I believe that. I truly believe that.
I just want to ask another question. What make you get up every morning and have that passion and that tenacity to get that energy and that drive to continue doing what you're doing?
It's moving forward. I'm not ever going to go back. I'm never looking back ever again. And I don't want any young person to live through what I lived through ever in their life. And that drives me. That fuels my energy.
And you tell the viewers out there, the veterans that are there suffering with PTSD, you need to come out, talk to people like Frank, look at people like Ed and myself, volunteer, and get out and find your purpose. If you come out here, you find your purpose. I want to thank you, Ed, for bringing me out here, because you've been trying to get me out here for a year, and I've been doing this now for over a year. And that's what it's all about. And be honorable to sit here next to you, a Vietnam veteran
Thank you.
that came back after all that. And I'm only turning 40. You viewers know, right? That means I have another 20 years to catch up to you, so I got to continue doing what I'm doing.
Well, you got another
with the
30 years to catch up to
right?
that.
With the things that I have going on. And Ed, how long you been doing this news program?
18 years, something like that.
Wow.
18
Good for
years.
you.
And I don't want to throw you under the bus, but you're about 60-something now?
Yeah, 62. And we're down to a minute, Frank. Is
Okay.
there anything you want to say to wrap up?
Please advocate. Please advocate for our veterans. Reach out to me, walkwithfrank.org. My contact information, if you need someone to talk to, please reach out to me. If you would like to join the Walk with Frank team, reach out to me. If you would like to advocate for the new curriculum, please reach out to me. I answer every phone call. I answer every email. Please reach out to me, and we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen in New York State and then this country.
And if you couldn't get it, you can get Ed and get us, Ed and Sabrina, on Veteran News.
Sure.
And we have that information for you.
veteransnewsuvo@gmail.com. Please send us a message.
And once again, Frank, thank you for coming
Thank you,
home.
Frank.
Thank you for
And
having
thank
me.
your family for
Thank you
all
for
what they
having me.
have
I
done.
appreciate it.
And continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Okay? And we're here to support you.
Thank you.